welcome to the crew.
Thank you. It's just amazing to be here. Look at this beautiful place. They gave me tea, set dressing.
And no green screen.
No green screen. Those chilies are real.
All
I'm
of
not
it's
sure they're
real?
going to let me eat the food, but it's very
No,
nice.
it's-
It's very nicely presented.
It's all over. How does it feel to show Eye in the Sky in this beautiful, spectacular little city of Dorpy of Prince Albert? And
It's been beautiful. I mean, one of the things that I think very few people realize is that the cinema that we showed the film in is part owned by Johnny Breert, who's the production designer on Eye in the Sky. Yeah, and I think South Africans, they're always saying to me, well, when are we going to do bigger films? And they don't realize that many people have actually been doing that. Johnny was the production designer on a great film called Hotel Rwanda.
Yes.
And now on Eye in the Sky, and there's great crews here. There's real talent in South Africa. So it was great to make Eye in the Sky back in Cape Town, and now to show it in Prince Albert in this beautiful place.
yeah. Two aspects I'd like to talk to you about, which involves obviously all your films you've made, filmmaking. But I think that a lot of people overlook that sometimes. Two aspects of filmmaking that I think is quite vital is the screenplay and your audience.
Right.
And I can see you've got that incredible connection, being close to your audience. And a lot of people making films or writing films tend to forget about the audience and just start over this film's all about me. It's all about me writing and all that. But the audience is absolutely vital.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and it's very interesting that you said, because everything does start with a script. I mean, it's a cliche to say, but it's true. And who are you writing for? If you're writing for yourself, write a diary. I mean, you're writing in order, I hope, to connect with other people, which is the audience. So it does help to understand what audiences respond to. I mean, we're frankly in the emotional manipulation business. We are in the business of understanding human beings and their emotional needs and fears and wants and desires, and then using, hopefully, that understanding to tell a story that just shifts that audience's perspective on the world slightly, so that they have a rich cinematic experience. If we can entertain and leave the audience with something to talk about, then for me that's a good reason to go to a movie. You want to be both entertained and provoked.
Absolutely, because they say you find people sitting in the dark looking at a cinema screen, and if the action on the screen communicates with the action happening in people's minds, you've got film happening.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way of putting it. It's just about communication. We're just trying to communicate with one another through this medium, and there are many ways to communicate: through books, through poetry, through novels, through film. And I try to encourage the young filmmakers that have been asking me a lot of these questions about how do you make it in the film business. The way you make it is by getting good at making films. There's no shortcut.
Absolutely.
Just study the craft and practice, and hopefully you'll eventually connect with an audience. And if you don't connect with an audience, you won't have a career in this business.
What excites you about reading a screenplay and you go, I have to make this film? What is it in that screenplay that makes you go, I have to make this film, sir? Even sacrifice 3 years of my life, or this is what I want to do?
It's a great question, and always slightly tricky, because we have to remember that there's many genres of film, and there's great films in every genre. And, in the horror genre, there's The Shining, and there's The Exorcist, and then there's great action movies, and then there are great romantic comedies. I personally, I guess, just given my background of having been a lawyer and growing up in the turbulent times of the 80s in South Africa, and I tend to be drawn to, and I hope this doesn't sound pretentious, but stories that in some way challenge me in a moral or ethical way. And don't tell me what to think, but present me with something morally or ethically challenging. And so a film like Eye in the Sky, which we've just made, was written by a great screenwriter called Guy Hibbert, a British writer, about the questions arising out of drone warfare and unmanned armed aerial vehicles and using them to strike targets, and what the blowback effect and so on is. So when I got Guy's script, I read a lot of scripts. They come in, and frankly, I'm fortunate that there are many, but a lot of them are bad, let's be honest. And you can kind of tell in the first few pages whether someone can really write for movies or not. And it's for me, it's about, is there a great thematic idea that's being explored, and are the characters really unique and interesting and well drawn? And then it's about pace. So many scripts are just slow. And that's what you were talking about, an audience. You know, if you bore your audience, or you take too long to express something in a scene, and the scenes are too long and the dialogue is too slow, it doesn't matter how interesting your idea is. You've got to have an interesting idea, and then you've got to tell that story well, with pace and energy and visual excitement. So it's hard to give an answer to your question, but you can tell people who can write well within the first few pages, and those who can't.
And what do you think? I mean, that's looking at the good aspects of what excites you about a screenplay, but what do you think makes a really badly written screenplay? Because you can read it in the first 3-4 pages.
You can, you know, sometimes you learn more from reading bad work than reading good work, because when you read a script that's written by a really talented screenwriter, it's easy to think, oh, this is just how it is, and you don't realize the skill that's gone into writing it. A lot of people, I think, that screenwriting is sort of an easy option. It's like, oh, well, I can't write a novel, but I can write a screenplay because it's only 120 pages, and I just have to get the dialogue and some scenes. Actually, it's a little like trying to write free verse. I mean, you want to generate in the minimal amount of space a maximum visual image. So it's hard to give examples, but some people just don't describe environments efficiently and quickly and well. It's laborious, it's slow. Their dialogue is often too expositional, where the characters are used to explain the plot and they're telling the audience what's happening. The only way to become a good screenwriter is to write every day, practice writing scenes, and then to read a lot of screenplays, and not necessarily just good ones. Read the bad ones. So the films that you think were bad, actually read those scripts and see whether the flaw was in the screenplay or whether it was in the execution by the director. But I find there are a lot of people who want to be screenwriters and they just don't read scripts. They watch movies and they go, I can do that. And actually, it's quite a difficult skill. When you get great screenwriting, as a director, it's such a relief.
Absolutely. One thing I try to bring across to a lot of writers is to just get it out of their mind. You're not writing a film, you're writing a screenplay. And a screenplay will be interpreted by the director and by the entire team.
That's a great question, because when you make a film, you have all sorts of other tools. You know, you have the music, you have the actors, you have great visuals. When you write a script, you only have what's on the page and what you generate in the imagination of the reader. So when you write a script, you're writing a film, but you're actually writing for someone to read. And so if you express yourself on the page in cliched ways, or if the script lacks pace, or you don't want to just turn the page to know what happens next, it'll never become a film. So you have to be able to excite in that reader who's sitting by themselves. You have to excite their imagination and make them want to turn the page, and do that in an efficient way.
Okay. When is the first moment in your life that you realized, I am going to be a filmmaker? I want to be a filmmaker.
For me, it took a while, because when, you know, you and I are of the same sort of generation, when I was young, there were very, very few films made in South Africa. I only saw a TV set when I was 13 years old. It just wasn't because we didn't have, there were no TVs in South Africa until 1976. And when it came on, as you know, there was like the Brady Bunch and Bonanza, and there was nothing deeply inspiring. But we watched movies on 16mm at home, projected against the living room wall.
I actually missed that sound of that projector.
Yeah, I remember it so well. But we watched films mostly from overseas. There was not a lot, but I remember being about 10, I forget exactly how old I was, and I went to see Air Lollipop. And I sat like this in my seat, because for the first time I was seeing someone like me and people from my country on the screen. I'd only ever seen British actors or American actors. And in that moment, I remember it hit me, and I don't know if that was the moment I decided I wanted to make films. I think then I just wanted to be an actor. I didn't really know what directors did. But I remember that moment of going, wow, you can tell stories based on where you come from. It doesn't all have to be about people from overseas. So that was a big moment. And when I got to the end of high school and I'd done a lot of acting at school, I wanted to be an actor. And my dad and mum had been actors when they were young and given it up because they couldn't make a living. And thankfully my dad then went on to do well in business and send me to a school where I was very fortunate to get a good education. And he just said, there's no way you're going to be an actor, son." All parents, don't do that. I was there, there's no money, have fun, but take your big mouth and go and study law. So that's what I did. But I do think that in a weird way, it trained me in terms of thinking and story and conflict and moral and ethical questions. So I actually ended up really enjoying studying law. But I always knew I wanted to be in film, and so I didn't practice law for more than 4 months. And I then had studied photography as well as a correspondence program for about 2 years. And my first job in the film business was actually as a location scout, shooting stills of locations. But because I'd done theatre, Moonyin Lee, the wonderful agent and casting director, had seen me and signed me on as an actor. So I was making my living shooting for location scouting and going for auditions, and I was lucky enough to get cast in a play and then in a TV show, and it went from there. And I only really studied screenwriting when I was about 30 years old, and I went overseas to UCLA on their night school extension program. And I studied screenwriting and directing and cinematography then for a couple of years. So it took a while.
Okay. And I think lastly, if we can just, any advice or tips you have for filmmakers, because you're sitting here at the, and also the importance of a festival like the Indie Guru Film Festival, to actually showcase proudly South African stories, and there should be more of that happening. But how do you feel about the festival?
Well, festivals, this festival and festivals all over the world are absolutely essential to discovering new talent. I wouldn't have ultimately been able to have a career in film if it wasn't for festivals, and here's why. The advice I give to young people who want to be directors is, I can't introduce you to someone who will give you a job. The only way you're going to get a job as a director is if you make a film, short or long, but let's start with short films, that is really good. And you have to train and work at your craft. There's unfortunately, probably due to reality TV, there's this notion that you can become famous and rich very quickly. It's a curse, I think. If you want to make feature films as opposed to sort of show your butt in reality TV, then you're going to have to work. You have to work at your craft. And the short film genre is very useful because it's a place where you're allowed to fail. You can make a short film, and if it's not good, you can kind of bury it and practice and make another one. If you make a feature film that costs more money and goes out into the world and it bombs and gets bad reviews and doesn't do business, you will really struggle to make your second feature. So I would advise young filmmakers to make short films and hopefully you will eventually make one that's really good if you're learning your craft. And by submitting them to festivals like this one, and now you can submit all over the world very easily. You upload. In my day, we had to send VHS tapes and cost a lot of money. The FedEx, I can't afford to send the VHS tape to Poland and to Czech Republic. And there are festivals in every country in the world. So make your short films, submit them to festivals, and at some point, if you're good enough and your film is good enough, it will hopefully win an award or a special mention at film festivals in the world, and allow you to use that credibility to raise finance for your first feature. But if you try to rush it, and I've seen people do that, people who borrow money from their grandmother to make their brilliant feature film, and it's a disaster. Well, not only did you bankrupt Granny, but you probably won't get another job directing. So don't rush it. This directing craft, and I don't mean this to sound pompous in any way, it takes time, because you're trying to learn a lot about many disciplines: screenwriting, cinematography, acting, production design, music, sound. You're a conductor of an orchestra, and you don't have to be the best violinist. You want the best violinist to be your lead violinist, but you better understand what a lead violinist does in order to bring the best out of that violinist. Similarly, the cellist, the drummers. In film, it's the cinematography, the design, the actors, the sound, the music. If you don't know how to bring the best out of that team, you'll never be a great director. And you don't have to be the best cinematographer, but you have to know as much as possible about cinematography in order to appreciate what you can draw from that talented artist. I guess what I'm saying is work hard. And now my tea's cold.
Absolutely.
I hope that wasn't too boring.
Yeah. No,
Anyway.
it was great. Can you share just one or two words or something about the next project you're working on, or the one you're working on at the moment?
You know, I've learned to be very cautious because I'm working on half a dozen things, and all of them, you know, you work and then you find, oh, this one's going in the right direction. But until I've absolutely got it financed, I'm reluctant to say, because you'll say to me, so how did that one go? Oh, that one didn't happen. So right now I'm just excited to be promoting Eye in the Sky, frankly. Forgive me, commercial plug.
No, it's absolutely great.
Eye in the Sky
And we
releases in
cannot-
South Africa on DVD on July 29th.
We can't
And there it
wait
is.
for that. We just hope that there's an audio commentary on it,
I think I did one. Yes, I did one.
because that will be worth.
It was a
lot.
tricky one to comment on because there's intercutting to so many different places. But I'm very proud of the South African crew that made Eye in the Sky. We shot the entire film in Cape Town, and yet it's set all over the world. And Johnny and his Johnny Briett and his production and construction team did an amazing job of building sets that are in London and Las Vegas. So
Okay.
we have a lot of talented people here.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you
for
very
this,
much. Great chatting to you.
Thanks, sir.
Cheers.
And there you can have a nice little.
Now I can have my cook sister.
You can have a cook sister.
Cook sisters back in South Africa.